Hi, my name's Jeff Skinner, and I've got the pleasure of interviewing Marina Santilli of UCL Business. UCL Business being the proud winner of this year's External KE Initiative of the Year for PraxisAuril. And Marina, I'm talking to you because we really like some inside knowledge of this. I mean, I'm intrigued. It's the most wonderful story. Why don't you just kick off by saying what the initiative was? I mean, what at its base level, what was this amazing innovation that you wanted to bring to the world?
So the innovation that started from UCL was the invention, if you like, of the CPAP device, or the continuous pressure airway device, which was developed by UCL's Institute of Healthcare Engineering alongside Mercedes Formula One team.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd been going on for a couple of weeks before we got involved, but only just a few weeks. And there's an amazing story that you can follow actually through the BBC News, in fact, as to how quickly it came into life, into being.
Well, I mean, just to interrupt there, when
Yeah.
I saw that you'd won this, a couple of months on, it was the most amazing story and made you proud to be, and ever having been part of UCL, that there it was in the headlights, in the forefront.
I know, it was amazing. I think we were all quite surprised where it came out of, I won't say nowhere, because obviously we have a very kind of busy, industrious team that are always looking at opportunities.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that it got through all the, it was basically a re-engineered device. So I think it started off as a conversation between Mervyn Singer and Rebecca Shipley, two professors at UCL, about
Mm-hmm.
what they could really do to try and help with these the early stage of the pandemic. So just to, I guess, bring it back, we're talking about an invention that was aimed to contribute to the number of patients in intensive care that were requiring ventilation. And a call had gone out from government to a call to arms, if you remember, in the middle of March, I think, or early March, to say we need more ventilators. And the feedback from UCL or the professor of healthcare medicine at UCL was basically that perhaps ventilators aren't the right approach here. What we need is more, is to be able to deliver oxygen more effectively and without the invasive treatment that a ventilator demands.
And that's what the CPAP device does.
So that's what the CPAP device was.
I mean, was there, Mervyn, were there scientists already talking to and working with Mercedes? I mean, was that de novo as well?
So that was, how did they get involved? They got involved because someone knew someone. And
as always happens, that's fine.
And the Formula One industry in the UK in general had already come together and made an agreement that they would try and help to contribute in some way, and that they have obviously that the factories themselves had effectively closed down for regular business, but what they were left with was with some very large factories in the case of Formula One, Mercedes Formula One, with some very high-powered, high-value rapid prototyping machines that could be put to use. And that was indeed what they were used for, was to, well, for a start, they helped reverse engineer. They used some of their very complicated shall we say, X-ray type machinery to pull apart effectively the device that they'd found nestling in the back of an NHS hospital, UCLH hospital somewhere, and to reimagine it as initially to an identical device, but then.
So, I mean, it was one of these marriages made in heaven. Once the people came together, you had the terrific engineering, and then you've got the medics coming together, one specifying, the other being able to build.
That's correct, yeah.
Fantastic. So how did the approach to UCL Business happen? I mean, you have a sense here that 1 o'clock in the morning, you receive a phone call and you sort of get up off your bed. I mean, what actually happened? I mean, I suppose you were all thinking, great, we've now got a few weeks off while, we all work at home, and then suddenly this happens.
It was a bit like that. We had come across the project already, in that my colleague Weng, who is responsible for the healthcare engineering department at UCL, had been in touch with Professor Shipley, and because they'd wanted some advice on intellectual property, because as we mentioned earlier, the device that they'd originally found in an NHS hospital was a pre-existing device, and as far as they were aware was off patent, but they wanted some advice about that. So we did know about it, and we had advised them on that point.
Yeah.
But it was a little while, so it was while I was talking to my colleague Weng about this, and I was mentioning this platform that we already have, Elucid, which I guess is the foundation.
We'll come on to that in a second.
And the fact that what I was wanting to do was to develop a version of Elucid which we could put up there for academics around the world to promote technologies that they had developed that would be useful for coronavirus. And so I mentioned this to her, and she said, well, actually, that would be, maybe we can get the CPAP device on there. So it was kind of like a really kind of a fortuitous kind of conversation, because in the same time, Professor Shipley had come to Weng and said, can we license this technology?
But you had a considerable, this is really where UCL proved itself to be a college. UCL Business is separate from UCL, of course, but everybody just came together because you had some unusual decisions that had to be made on the turn of a sixpence, really. This was going to be for free. You had the academics saying that, we want strict licensing, but we want it to be very widely available at the same time. And everybody just had to mobilise. Presumably also the top tier of the Provost and Co had to be solidly behind this, and you drove it through in 4 days, from what I understand.
Yeah, so building the system and develop, so there's quite a lot of legal work to do as well. So it did come together over a weekend. It was the weekend before Easter, as I remember, and Becky had basically set us a timeline. She was absolutely passionate about driving this whole program forward.
Sorry, who did you say?
Professor Becky Shipley. So she's
okay, yeah, okay, got it. Yes,
engineering. So she was driving the project really forward. And she basically brought it to life, said every day that we can't get these designs. So what we're talking about is licensing the designs, the designs that you can basically take and build on your own rapid prototyping machine. Do you happen to have one? Every day that we can't get these out, the more people are going to die. So when someone says that to you, that puts it in perspective.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, yes, we'll drop everything that we're doing this weekend, which was mainly trying to work out how to live with this new kind of normal as it was at the time, which is now definitely our current normal. And just kind of focus down on various aspects. So we were driving forward, I guess, in parallel from a UCLB perspective, the two aspects of the legal agreement. So it was obviously the license itself. So what were the terms of that license? And then the second bit was the IP agreement between Mercedes Formula One and UCL. So that was two pieces of work being done on that. Begged, steeled and borrowed a favour from external lawyers to help us as a pro bono.
I saw that you had a couple of people coming in there.
Yeah, and they again just rolled up their sleeves and got to work on a Saturday morning. And likewise, my Lucid development team, who actually scattered over the world, are benefiting from multiple time zones. They again sprang into action to actually create a site.
Okay, so let's just go to this eLucid. It's an open platform for licensing, but usually you charge for this. But it's a kind of I don't want to use the word easy access because that has different connotations, but that's essentially what it is.
It's what we call it express licensing. So
express licensing, right.
We call it express licensing platform. So it's for technologies that are non-exclusively licensed. So you can make them available under free of charge licenses if you want, but obviously as a commercialization office, most tech transfer offices are trying to license technologies either for a fee or as I say, under academic license. But what it enables you to do is to upload your template license for a particular product or two template licenses for a particular product, and allow your end user or your licensee to select their license and basically follow what is a normal e-shopping experience effectively. So it breaks down the barriers from a licensee's perspective as to how they actually access IP that has been generated in the university, which is often.
So the platform was opened. Fantastic, 4 days work, and then white brow, and then obviously aided and abetted by the huge amount of publicity that this innovation got, you suddenly found yourself, what did you say, at its peak you had 2 applications a minute, you had 1100 in the first 48 hours, and this is not without some sort of effort. You just can't let anybody have it, and therefore you have to have some application, some review procedure, which again must have completely overwhelmed until you came up with this bulk approval. What does that mean?
Well, so eLucid has always had the kind of the key thing about it. It's not just a click to accept a license term, which is obviously an easy way of doing it, but it actually allows you to configure for every product you put up there your own workflow. So you can choose a workflow where it's all automated. So emails are automatically sent to people with the information that your licensee has entered into whatever questions you pose to them. And so it makes it very easy for somebody to quickly review in one place all the information that's been provided and decide whether to approve or reject that order. And that can be based on things such as what the licensee's email address is. If it's if you're restricting to academic use, then you can check that. You can ask them, who are you? In the case of the CPAP
but the
device,
algorithm is already there. I mean, once it was there, and you had this bulk approvals manager who was doing 100 at a time.
Yeah, the bulk approvals manager came because the way the notifications normally work is that the person in the back end that's kind of responding to these incoming requests is receiving a single email for every order that comes in. Luckily, we'd had an inkling by then, because when the BBC News item hit, which was about a week before we started work on this, the team had already had in several hundred inquiries from around the world saying, can we have access to these designs, which was what had kicked off the process with UCLB in the first place. So we already had an inkling that there was going to be a large appetite for people wanting to download these designs. And therefore we decided that with setting up this new instance of Elucid specifically for the coronavirus response, that we would build something new. So we built a new feature on that Saturday, which was this bulk approvals manager, which basically allowed the approver, which in this case was someone from healthcare engineering, to have a dashboard basically in front of them. So the orders appeared in there with all the necessary information, rather than having to respond to every email that arrived.
And then of course you've got two products here. You've got the product, which is the device itself, but then you started having the platform as a product. I mean, other universities from around the world, having seen what you were doing and having innovations of their own, they started to want to know from you how they could, you either use this platform or replicate it. So what was the backstory there?
So as I said, so originally it was my intention to create an instance of Elucid specifically for COVID-19 technologies, with the kind of, there was one kind of restriction, if you like, and that would be that the technology would have to be made available free of charge. As I said, normally we allow payment collections through Elucid. So the point was, if you want to put it on here, you have to allow it free of charge. We're not charging you anything to put the products up there. And there are a number of COVID-related pledges going on around the world, set up by various tech transfer office groups. So it kind of plays into that. So commitment to make available IP much more quickly, more rapidly, and more efficiently, effectively. And that's what we think our platform allows people to do. So we have made it available. We are actively contacting a number of universities who appear to be active in this space. I would say it's possibly still slightly early days. I think UCL were very, very fast, as you know, in terms of delivering and developing this device, blisteringly fast. And so there was me thinking, oh, there's going to be loads of other technologies out there that are ready and ripe to be licensed, because obviously the other condition is that your technology needs to be ready to be licensed.
Of course, absolutely.
This isn't about posting a technology where you're looking for a research or a collaboration.
It's not a marketing tool, it's a
no,
tool.
There are many other platforms that do that very well, and we're not trying to replicate that. Our system is very much a transaction engine, so it's about transacting the license. And so
you now have other universities either putting their innovations on the site, or you're allowing this as a kind of white label solution to enable them to do the same. So, if not the actual machine, then the underlying principles.
So so we have a site which is configured and ready for universities to send us their technologies, and we'll upload them. So, and that's what we're kind of promoting at the moment. If you have a technology, there's a process on the website. It's a form to fill in effectively that declares what the technology is, etc., etc. The TTO takes responsibility for the license, etc. So the only thing is that we don't have any others up there yet. I think that's why I'm struggling to answer your question. So I think we've reached out to a number of universities. There appears to be some in development, but nothing quite ready and ripe to post up alongside that.
So let's just go to the last phase, which I'm fascinated by. It's the feedback loop back into the research. I mean, the first task was to get it out there, and then the second task is to say, all you licensees, what are you actually doing with this thing? Because impact matters. I mean, impact matters, obviously, but I think it's more than that, because this could be the start of a fantastic new, research project where you have, which must be exciting the academics, because suddenly you have all these people who could potentially provide data on what they're doing and what the impact is. So what is this loop back to the researchers? How are they still involved?
So if with the CPAP device, which I think is the obvious example. So as we, through So again, we have to be mindful of things like GDPR, etc., who you can contact about what. So part of the way we configured this particular product was to request permission to contact people. So we request permission for a few different things through the tick boxes. One of them was, do you consent to for us to contact you with new files related to this product, because we were actually uploading new files.
I mean, it would have been a bit ungrateful if they'd said no to that one, I guess.
Some people say no, and then you kind of wonder who they are, but some people just say no to everything. And then the others like are related to, can we contact you for further information? And luckily many people did click yes on that. And the data report, so the system allows the academics in this case to extract as often as they want to Excel reports from the system, which gives them all the information.
So they're happy, not just with the way in which UCLB was able to serve what they wanted out of this, but they're also happy with it as an ongoing project, and the data and the contacts and the relationships and the reputation that it's allowed them to
yeah, the data's been great. I mean, they have over nearly 2,000 active licensees now, and a majority of those have allowed them to be in touch with them to follow up. So they have followed up, and there's been some news items and little videos made of particular groups, one in Mexico that is getting close to developing their own version of the system. And I guess the team are very much involved still. This is a humanitarian effort, and although they've got other things now to move on to, or they're working with, they're still very much helping where they can, those projects that, of the 2,000, I don't suspect there's going to be 2,000 manufacturing facilities across the world to make these CPAP devices. But there are quite a handful, and that particularly in South America, funnily enough, that are making good progress. And so to be able to highlight them and to actually help them as well, because obviously our approval, the regulatory approval that we had to make the 10,000 devices for the NHS doesn't carry through to anyone else. So they have to get their own regulatory approval, but we can, we've been helping with that.
I think we're almost at an end. You're not at an end, obviously, but just at a personal level, have you ever been involved in anything like this before? I mean, this must have been an extraordinary roller coaster.
It was an amazing project to be in, and we had there was a webinar recently with everyone from that story involved, including the people that were much more involved with the development of the device than I was. And I think without exception, everyone said, and this, we're talking about some very senior figures here with some very important jobs, that this was by far the most exciting and interesting project that they've ever been involved in. So fantastic. Really pleased to be a part of it.
I mean, everything goes out of the way. It is tech transfer in its purest form. No bureaucracy, no money getting in the way. This is just what it should all be about, which is terrific research expertise and technology, just making it into, I mean, what could be more dramatic than you can almost count the number of lives that this can actually save. So, I greatly envy you for having been in the middle of this, but I also greatly admire you because it could have been screwed up in so many ways, and yet somehow it all came together. And as I show it, it just demonstrates that, UCL is a college, and when it matters, everything can come together.
Yep, it was great. It was a great opportunity. I was really happy to be involved, and fantastic to win the award, to recognise the collaborative effort. It really was a collaborative effort from across UCLB and others. So yeah, it was a great.
Well done.
Very much.
Well, I think I'll leave you there. I've no idea. Your background is clearly a fake one, so I have absolutely no idea where you are. But I'm going to assume you've got stacks of stuff to do. And just thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me and the rest of the tech transfer, knowledge transfer, KE, whatever you call it, community, who have seen this but had no idea what it was like on the inside. So, Marina, thank you very much.
Thank you for interviewing me, Jeff. Thanks. Okay.